Hey there! The cyber threat to small businesses has never been at a higher level than it is right now. And small business owners are in a uniquely exposed position because of the close link between their financial livelihood and the fortunes of their business. Both could be severely impacted by a cyber attack. John Byrne here, entrepreneur, insurance professional, online educator and founder of Surviving Cyber. My goal is to help small business owners and managers who are struggling with today's complex digital environment get to grips with cyber risk. If this is your situation, you're in the right place. This short video series, The Small Business Owner's Introduction to Cyber Risk, will get you started on the right track. Through the 6 videos of the series, I'm going to walk you through some important cyber risk topics so you can prepare for a cyber incident in your business and keep your small business and your people safe. Now, before we dive in, I want to give you access to the free ebook that accompanies this video series. It contains valuable content from the videos and it's full of practical tips that you can implement. You can use the link pages.survivingcyber.com/ebook to get access now. I'll also put that link in the video description below. Now, today we dive deeper into the video series with topic number 3, a checklist for cyber risk. I hope you're ready to dive in. I'm John Byrne, and this is the Small Business Owner's Introduction to Cyber Risk. A key step in the efforts of small companies to become cyber resilient is to ensure that they've considered all areas of cyber risk in the business. Now, it doesn't have to be a complicated process, as a straightforward checklist will often help identify and document the major risks that exist in any organization. This step could be followed by a consideration of how controls might be introduced. These would reduce the identified threats and vulnerabilities that place the organization at risk. Next, I'm going to consider a checklist covering people, technology and data, third parties, remote access, user accounts, and business governance. Businesses that have not taken steps to protect their organization against the risk of a cyber incident are taking a huge risk. Let's begin with some questions to ask ourselves about people. Do staff receive ongoing cybersecurity training to maintain security awareness levels? Do staff undertake reviews to ensure that they understand cybersecurity risks? And are the results measured and monitored to ensure that there's an improvement? Do you test cyber awareness regularly by sending spoof, phishing emails or using test social media scams to see if people respond? Do your people understand the significant risks that can arise from having poor cyber practices? For example, opening suspicious email attachments, revealing passwords by telephone, or using unsecured public Wi-Fi? Do you have appropriate mechanisms for staff to be able to report suspicious issues quickly and effectively in a no-blame culture? Do you apply onboarding or exit procedures when staff join and leave your business? Do you conduct appropriate checks on new employees to understand if they represent a potential information security risk? And have you reviewed the people risks that arise from remote working arrangements? These are just a series of issues that you could have in a simple checklist for people risk. Next, we move on to technology and data. The questions here might be, do you know where and how your data is backed up and stored, and whether your data is encrypted? Do you have appropriate mechanisms for securely sending and receiving data files? Do you have an inventory of hardware and software assets and individuals who are responsible for ensuring that that inventory is kept up to date? Do you have an asset management policy? Do you have appropriate firewalls to protect your IT infrastructure? If you outsource your IT function, do you receive regular management reports? Are your wireless networks appropriately secured? Do you have email and internet traffic filtering software? Do you regularly check the hardware, operating systems, data, and other software against a good known state baseline? Now, what this means is, do you have a known baseline against which to check your machines so that each new machine that's installed has this baseline as its starting point? Do you use intrusion detection software? Do you review logs of successful and unsuccessful attacks and probes or scans of your system? Do you have a security roadmap, and do you review it against your overall IT roadmap regularly? Have you classified your data by sensitivity and risk? Do you patch your software automatically when an update is made available? Do you have effective anti-malware defenses on all your devices and scan for malware regularly? And have you reviewed the cybersecurity and data protection requirements of remote working? Now, that may have seemed like a long list of data and technology issues, but every one of those is critical to assessing your risk. Next, we move on to third parties. The checklist would include: do you understand the cyber risk arising from third-party service providers and the suppliers who make up your supply chain? Do you have a process to assess third parties and suppliers for cybersecurity risk? Do you undertake due diligence before engaging with them? Do you place appropriate contractual obligations on third parties, requiring them to take steps to keep your data secure? And if you use third parties for data processing or storage, do you have appropriate contractual mechanisms to be notified quickly of any potential security issues or breaches in view of your GDPR obligations? And finally, if you're outsourcing significant functions, does your board of directors receive regular reports on these outsourced activities? So again, a number of key issues to be looked at and considered in any checklist of third-party risk. Next, we have remote access, bring your own devices and removable devices, and this whole category of risk. Do you allow remote access to your IT systems? If so, do you have appropriate software and controls in place to ensure that access is secure? For example, a corporate VPN or virtual private network. Do you require multi-factor authentication, or MFA, for remote access requests? Do you have appropriate policies that ensure you secure your mobile devices? Is corporate data processed or stored on personal devices of employees? Is data encrypted on mobile devices? And can mobile devices be remotely wiped in the event of loss or theft? And if you allow employees to use personal devices when they're working remotely, or to bring their own devices into the office, do you apply appropriate restrictions to personal use to maintain security? Have you considered the use of a secure area on these personal devices? Do you allow the use of removable media? And if so, do you have a policy covering removable media? And have you reviewed the cybersecurity and data protection requirements of remote working? All of those issues would be very usefully placed on the checklist covering this topic of remote access. Next, we move on to user accounts and passwords. The questions would be: do you require unique accounts for each user of your information systems? Do you restrict administrator access accounts to the absolute minimum necessary? Do you have a policy requiring strong and hard to guess passwords? Do you use software to reduce common password risks? Do you automatically prevent the use of common passwords, the reuse of old passwords, and do you force password changes on a regular basis? Do your employees receive training on good password practices? This section of the checklist might be more familiar to most listeners, because user accounts and passwords has been a risk factor for a long time. And the final section on the checklist would be around business governance. The questions could be: do you have written policies, standards and procedures in place for managing cyber risk and ensuring that all employees are aware of these policies? Does your board of directors and your management team regularly consider cyber risk at their board management meetings? Does your organization have a documented cyber incident response plan that's regularly tested? Does your business have an incident response team to handle any cyber incident? Does your board of directors and management team understand the sources of the key cyber threats to the organization's crown jewel information assets? Has the board of directors and management team considered cyber insurance to protect against the financial consequences of cyber risk? Small businesses are big business for cyber criminals. A company that addresses these risk areas and puts controls in place using a checklist like this to reduce their risk to an acceptable level will be well on their way to improving their cyber resilience.
Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you'll find the checklist useful in your small business. Don't forget to register now for the free ebook using the link pages.survivingcyber.com/ebook, or click on the link in the video description below. I hope to see you again soon for video 4 in the series, when I'll discuss what do small businesses really think about cyber risk, and I'll dive deeper into the small business owner's introduction to cyber risk.